Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Let's talk about some benefits out there that are unknown that could put money into the household that we just aren't aware of. Here's the sad situation, right? 30% of veterans are service connected for something. 30%. It's a small number. I think it should be higher. But it is what it is. Of those 30%, I believe that the overwhelming majority are still unaware of what other benefits could come into their household financially, right? And other safety net programs and benefits, life insurance type stuff, right? That's out there. So this one specific, I'm going to be talking about could add, anywhere from $1,600 a month all the way up to into the mid 3,000s or even higher, depending on a whole host of different varying factors. With that, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. Before we jump in, I wanted to throw a special thanks out there to Greg LaFortune. I'm not sure if that's really your name. That's what it looks like to me. L.A. Fortune. Greg L.A. or LaFortune. 1894. Thank you so much, Greg. I truly appreciate your super comment. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And then James Egbert, thank you so much, James. I really, really appreciate you doing that super comment as well. It really does mean the world to me, and I really do appreciate that additional support. Definitely not required, but well received. Thank you so much. All right, so let's jump into this. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to be talking about DIC. That is Dependency Indemnity Compensation. Now, Dependency Indemnity Compensation is a compensation, and it's for dependents, whether it is a spouse, a child, or a parent in some cases. There's varying factors that are involved there. But many people are not aware of DIC or how to even qualify for it. And in some cases, when you read through it, you actually might self-segregate out, which many of us do, and that's why we're left without benefits. So a couple things I'm going to throw out there real quick before we read into it is I'm going to tell you the dollar figures for the spouse side. We'll jump into the other stuff too, but as far as surviving spouse, because that is the primary recipient of dependency indemnity compensation, which, by the way, is affected by COLA, the cost of living adjustment, which we should know here October 10th of 2024. So the numbers I'm giving you today are not reflective of that change, just so you're aware. Now, when it comes to dependency indemnity compensation, here is probably the biggest piece, okay? I'm going to give you the dollar figures here real quick, and then I'm going to give you a big kind of doorway into it. All right, so the flat fee, the flat or base rate, the base rate is $1,612.75. That is as of September 30th, 2024. Now, October 10th, they're going to give us the COLA. The COLA will go into effect there with the January payment, the payment that's made in January. So there will be an adjustment down the road. Now, currently, again, the base rate, $1,612.75. And if you add in some basic add-ons, like let's say, for example, you have a couple children, you've been married for more than 8 years, the veteran's been rated at 100% for those same 8 years, and you as the surviving spouse require aid and attendance, you would be looking at $3,495.83. I'll go into it a little bit more. I just want to give you kind of that range, right, of how much it could go up to. If you have more children under the age of 18, well, sure, it's going to go higher. If you have less, it's going to go lower. If you don't require aid and attendance, it would be less. So in any case, the nice kind of range to think about is in the 1600s all the way up into the $3,000 range as far as this tax-free benefit is concerned. Now, the big tip here before we jump into what the VA says is in order to qualify, the veteran, there's a couple different routes this can take. Welcome to the world of nuance, right? One, the easiest way is if the veteran was 100% rated for 10 years, and there's even caveats to that where it could be less depending on different things. But for the most part, it's these two avenues into qualifying for dependency indemnity compensation. One is the veteran was rated 100%, including TDIU, for a 10-year period. If that's the case, the veteran can pass away from any condition. Any condition, doesn't matter. Any reason for passing away. Could have gotten in a car accident, doesn't matter. If it's been 10 years, the surviving spouse or others could receive dependency indemnity compensation. That's a huge benefit. Now, not everybody's rated 100%, so there is that. What happens then? Well, that's the other route. Now, this route requires the veteran to have passed away due to a service-connected condition. Now, here's the trick. The VA views basically any causes or causation listed on the death certificate as cause of death. So what we would be looking at here is on a death certificate, there is the cause of death. He thinks I'm talking about him. The cause of death, and then there's the contributing cause of death. Now, the example here that I love to use is the veteran passed away of a heart attack. There was no service connection for a heart condition. However, they were rated for hypertension, high blood pressure. You could have the if this hasn't already happened, or if it's already happened, you already have a death certificate, you could go back and have that death certificate amended and have them include hypertension as a contributing cause to death. Again, every time I say death, he freaks out. So that's Stan, the rooster in the background, for those that heard him. All right, so contributing cause of death, listed on the death certificate as hypertension, cause of death, heart attack. The surviving spouse in this scenario should qualify for dependency indemnity compensation. So let's jump into it here on the website on the VA. It says about VA DIC for spouses, dependents, and parents. I'm going to read through it so you're aware of what's going on, and then I will give my 2 cents along the way. So if you're the surviving spouse, child, or parent of a service member who died in the line of duty, or the survivor of a veteran who died from a service-related injury or illness, you may be able to get a tax-free monetary benefit called VA Dependency and Indemnity Compensation, VADIC. Find out if you can get these benefits or compensation. So now here's the thing that I already don't like about this first paragraph. The first paragraph leads you to believe that it must be service-related death. So you could potentially self-segregate out of this for 2 reasons. One, got in a car accident. However, they were rated 100% for more than 10 years. They would qualify. But reading this, you would think, well, that's not a service-connected condition. I don't need to read on any further. And you self-segregate out for however many years until finally you figure it out. Ideally, you figure it out. The other way that you could self-segregate out of this is it has to be a service-related injury or illness. Well, they died of a heart attack. Not service-related. Hypertension was, but that's not what they died of. So you could also kind of self-segregate out of it in that fashion. So I wish it would be a little more bolstered up and, really reach out to an accredited representative to find out if you really do qualify. There could be other ways or some sort of verbiage in there, but there's not. So let's move on. All right. Am I eligible for VA DIC as a surviving spouse or dependent? As a surviving spouse, we'll start with first. Eligibility, you may be eligible for VA benefits or compensation if you meet these requirements. One of these must be true. You lived with the veteran or service member without a break until their death. Or if you separated, you weren't at fault for the separation. And one of these must be true. One of these must be true. Okay, so now for most people, you were living with the veteran, right, as the spouse. You lived with the veteran up until their death. 2 is one of these must be true. You married the veteran or service member within 15 years of their discharge period, their discharge from, let me read that again. You married the veteran or service member within 15 years of their discharge from the period of military service during which the qualifying illness or injury started or got worse. That's one option. The second option is you were married to the veteran or service member for at least 1 year. Okay, so most people are going to meet that criteria. You had a child with the veteran or service member. Most people would meet that. So it's usually those two. That first one was if you just got married and then the veteran passed away, right? If you were married for less than 1 year, you had to have been married within the first 15 years of their discharge from the period in which the qualifying illness or injury. So there's a notation here. If you remarried, you can receive or continue to receive compensation if one of these describes you. So veteran passes away, you get dependency indemnity compensation. You remarry, do you get to keep it? In some cases, yes. Here it is. You remarried on or after December 16th, 2003, and you were 57 years of age or older at the time you remarried. Or you remarried on or after January 5th, 2021, and you were 55 years of age or older at the time you remarried. Evidence, it says here, you'll need to provide evidence with your claim showing that showing that one of these descriptions is true of the veteran or service member. Evidence may include documents like military service records, doctor reports, and medical test results. So this is kind of like getting prepared for your VA claim, okay? Now, there's two different versions here. There's one where the veteran basically set everything up and is already fully service connected with everything. Then you have the other version where the veteran is not even connected with the VA at all, right? Zero. But let's say, for example, they are a Vietnam veteran and they have a presumptive for hypertension and they passed away of a heart attack. That surviving spouse, even though the veteran has never filed a claim with the VA, that surviving spouse can file for dependency indemnity compensation, provide proof that the veteran served in Vietnam, had hypertension, died of a heart attack with the contributing cause of hypertension on the death certificate. It's a little more footwork that the spouse has to do to get that versus the veteran who gets diagnosed for and gets service connected for hypertension, and that's already there, and that bridge has already been built. So anyway, moving on. Says here, provide evidence showing that at least one of these is true. The service member died while on active duty for training, or inactive duty. Or the veteran died from a service-connected illness or injury. That's the one we're talking about with the death certificate, showing the condition as either the cause or contributing cause of death. Next, the veteran didn't die from a service-connected illness or injury, but was eligible to receive VA compensation for a service-connected disability rating as totally disabling for a certain period of time. Again, finally we're hearing about that because this is a huge doorway in, especially for folks that, you were getting 100% for 10 years, veteran passes away from a non-service connected condition. What happens? Well, let's read on. If the veteran's eligibility was due to a rating of totally disabling, they must have had this rating for at least 10 years before their death. So you're rated 100% for 10 years before your death. Bam, you walk out, you get hit by a car, not service connected, and boom, the spouse can receive dependency indemnity compensation. There are a couple other ways in on this time frame. So if it's not that one, which that's the primary, right? And that's why I always talk about that one. But moving on, since they're released from active duty and for at least 5 years immediately before their death. So what they're saying here is for the veteran who was rated 100%, that 100% rating happened basically at their discharge from active duty, and they've had it for at least 5 years before their death. So just that transition from military to veteranhood with 100% for at least 5 years. The next one is if you had that 100% rating for at least 1 year before your death, if they were a former prisoner of war who died after September 30th, 1999. So it's just opening up that doorway a little bit for those who were former prisoners of war. You just needed to be rated 100% for 1 year. Now moving on, Note, totally disabling means the veteran's injuries made it impossible for them to work. TDIU. Okay? They don't say it, but they say it. Again, welcome to the world of nuance. All right, let's move on to surviving child. Eligibility. You may be eligible for VA benefits or compensation if you meet these requirements. All of these must be true. You are not married. Remember, this is for the child. You aren't included on the surviving spouse's compensation, and you're under the age of 18 or under the age of 23 if attending school. Notation: if you were adopted out of the veterans, or service member's family, but meet all other eligibility criteria, you still qualify for compensation, which is a nice notation. Evidence: you'll need to provide evidence with your claim showing that one of these descriptions is true of the veteran or service member. Evidence includes documents like military records, doctor reports, and medical test results. It's essentially the same situation as for the spouse, and that includes the 10 years, 5 years, and 1 year for 100%, depending on the circumstances, just as in that for the spouse. All right, so moving on, let's jump here to the next one I would like to talk about as a surviving parent. So eligibility for a surviving parent. You may be eligible for VA benefits or compensation if you meet these requirements. Both of these must be true. You are the biological, adoptive, or foster parent of the veteran or service member, and your income is below a certain amount. Okay? So that part's important. This is kind of a low, no income safety net program where maybe the veteran was helping the parent, right? So there's a notation. We defined a foster parent as someone who served the role of parent to the veteran or service member before their last entry into active service. Evidence: you'll need to provide evidence with your claim showing that one of these descriptions is true of the veteran or service member. Evidence may include documents like military records, doctor's reports, medical test results, and so forth. Exactly the same as the other two, the spouse and the dependent child. So I'm going to give a quick overview here on the dollar amount again to close it out. So, for example, okay, let's do this. The example of how to calculate DIC payment. If you're the surviving spouse of a veteran, your monthly rate would start at $1,612.75. Then, for each additional benefit you qualify for, you would add amounts from the added amounts table, different add-ons for different things. In this example, we're going to show you the total monthly payment for someone with 2 children under 18 and who qualifies for the 8-year provision and aid and attendance. The 8-year provision is that you were married to the veteran for the same 8 years that they were totally disabled, being 100%. So 100% for 8 years, and you were married to them for those same 8 years. Okay, that's the 8-year provision. All right, so let's jump through it. $16.1275 is the base. Then they're going to add $399.54 for that first child under 18. Then another $399.54 for that second child under 18. The 8-year provision pays out an additional $342.46 per month. Aid and attendance to the spouse would give an additional $399.54 for aid and attendance. And then because there were children involved that were under 18 years of age, the VA throws in a 2-year transitional benefit of $342 for the first 2 years preceding the awarding of DIC. That takes the total amount to $3,495.83. All right, with that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I hope that this shined a little light on some of this information that many people aren't aware of. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.